What happens when your fiancé picks your brother? When the golden boy steals your life? When family dinners turn into backstabs? When you're left holding a beer and a busted heart? Want to know how it all went down? I was halfway through my second Bud Light when the bartender, a guy with a beard like he's auditioning for Duck Dynasty, gave me that look. You know, the one that says, "Spill it or stop moping." I tipped the bottle his way, smirked, and said, "Living the dream, man. Just minus the fiancé and half my family." He chuckled, wiped down the bar, and left me to it. Smart guy. Didn't push. Probably figured I'd tip better if he let me stew. He wasn't wrong. It was a Tuesday night, the kind where the jukebox hummed some Garth Brooks tune nobody asked for, and I was parked on a stool at Dusty's Tavern, trying to figure out how my life went from pretty damn solid to a flaming dumpster fire in record time. I'm Jake, by the way. 32 decent gig shuffling boxes around at a logistics joint. Nothing sexy, but it pays the rent. Or it did, back when I had a place that wasn't a shoebox with unpacked cardboard towers. I was engaged to Lisa, my girl, for 5 years until, well, I wasn't. She's pregnant now, which sounds like a Hallmark moment until you hear the kicker. It ain't mine. Yeah, that's the punchline I'm still choking on, or having told the whole story yet. Mostly because saying it out loud makes me want to ram my head through a wall, but let's just say my little brother Ryan's got a knack for crashing more than family dinners. The bar stool creaked as I shifted, digging my thumb into the bottle label, peeling it off in little strips. Last time I saw Lisa smile, really smile, we were at this bakery downtown, squinting at a tray of wedding cake samples. She'd laughed, smearing vanilla frosting on my nose, and said, "You think chocolate's too basic for us?" I'd grinned like an idiot, plotting a cheap-ass honeymoon to the Smokies in my head while she licked the spoon. That was 3 months ago. Feels like 3 damn decades. Back then, I had a cozy split level with her, a pickup that only broke down half the time, and a life that wasn't perfect, but shit, it was mine. Now, I'm in this new apartment, surrounded by boxes I can't be bothered to unpack, staring at peeling paint and wondering if the landlord's ever heard of a vacuum. I took a swig, the beer warm and flat now, and let my mind drift to Ryan. My brother's 29, 3 years younger, but you'd think he invented sunlight the way Mom and Dad talk him up. Golden boy, I call him, usually with a laugh that's half sarcasm, half habit. If Ryan farted in church, Mom call it a hymn, and Dad nod like it was gospel. Growing up, he'd break something, like the time he smashed Mom's ugly-ass vase, and I'd catch the blame because you're the big brother, Jake, you should have stopped him. Meanwhile, he's over there grinning, getting a new Nintendo, while I'm grounded for breathing too loud. I used to think it'd even out when we got older, but nope. I busted my ass for a partial scholarship, biked 5 miles each way to sling burgers, and they barely noticed. Ryan flunked out of community college after 1 semester, and they threw him a damn party. Bought him a car, too. Guess who was still pedaling to work like a chump? The jukebox flipped to some twangy breakup song, and I snorted. Fitting. I tipped the bottle back, draining the last lukewarm drops, and waved for another. The bartender slid it over with a grunt, and I muttered, "Thanks, man, you're the real MVP tonight." He didn't smile, just kept wiping glasses. Fair enough. I wasn't here to make friends, just to sit with the mess in my head. See, I'd always figured I'd outrun the family bullshit. Got my own place, my own job, my own life. Lisa was the cherry on top. Smart, funny, the kind of girl who'd dance in the kitchen to shitty pop songs while I burned the toast. We clicked, you know? 5 years of that, and I thought, hey, maybe I'm not the screw-up Mom and Dad always hint at. I popped the question last fall. Nothing fancy, just a ring from a pawn shop and a speech that probably sucked. She said yes, and for once I felt like I'd won something. But Ryan? He's got this way of lurking. Always has. Even when I'd call to catch up, he'd turn it into a pissing contest. I'd say I got a raise, he'd say he's got a big opportunity coming. I'd mention Lisa, he'd smirk and say he's dating some model type. Whatever, man, I let it slide. He's my brother, right? Family's complicated but manageable, I told myself. Like a leaky faucet you ignore until it floods the basement. I rubbed my eyes, the bar lights blurring for a second, and leaned back. The TV above the bar flickered, some football rerun, all noise and no point. Kind of like my head lately. I should have seen it coming, I guess. My life was too good for a guy who still owns a flip phone. Should have known the universe had a gut punch waiting. I reached for my wallet to tip the bartender, and something slipped out. fluttering to the sticky floor. I bent down, groaning as my knees popped and picked it up. An old photo, creased and faded. Me, Lisa, and Ryan at a 4th of July barbecue last year. I'm flipping burgers, apron on like a dork, while Lisa's laughing mid-bite of a hot dog. Ryan's off to the side, beer in hand, smirking at her like he's in on some joke I missed. I stared at it, thumb brushing the edge, and felt my stomach twist. Guess I missed the memo on sharing, I muttered, loud enough that the guy 2 stools down glanced over. I shoved the photo in my pocket, tossed a crumpled 10 on the bar, and stood up. The air outside hit me cold, sharper than the beer, and I trudged to my truck, keys jingling. Whatever came next, I knew one thing. This wasn't the end of the story, just the calm before the shitstorm. I was slouched in a swivel chair at work, staring at a PowerPoint slide about quarterly shipping quotas, when my brain decided to take a detour. The guy up front, some suit with a tie that screamed midlife crisis, droned on about efficiency metrics, but all I could hear was Ryan's voice from last fall, echoing through my skull like a bad radio signal. It was our engagement party, one of those backyard deals with string lights and a playlist, heavy on Springsteen. Lisa was twirling around in a sundress, laughing at something I said, and Ryan, 3 beers deep, leaned over with that shit-eating grin of his. "She picked the wrong brother, man," he'd slurred, clapping my shoulder like it was a punchline. I'd laughed, big, dumb, and loud, because that's what you do when your brother's a clown, right? Famous last words. My coworker Dave nudged me, whispering, "Yo, Jake, you good? You're zoning out harder than my kid on Fortnite." I smirked, rubbing my neck. "Just practicing for the Grumpy Cat audition. Nailed it yet?" He snorted, but I caught the side eye. "Great. Now I'm the weirdo spacing out in meetings." I shifted in the chair, the cheap fabric squeaking under me, and tried to focus. Didn't work. My mind kept rewinding, pulling up stuff I'd brushed off like lint on a jacket. Lisa started staying out late a couple months back. Girls' nights, she called them. I'd ask how it went, and she'd wave a hand, distracted, muttering, "Oh, you know, same old, you worry too much, Jake." I'd shrug, crack a beer, and let it slide. She'd come home smelling faintly of wine and something sharper? Cologne, maybe? But I figured it was just bar stink clinging to her coat. Then there was Ryan, popping by our place more than usual, unannounced like some stray cat you accidentally fed once. He'd plop on the couch, kick his boots up, and say stuff like, "Damn, Lisa, this chicken's better than Mom's. You're wasted on Jake." She'd giggle, swat his arm, and I'd roll my eyes, chuckling. "Dude's got no game," I'd tell myself, flipping channels. "He's just screwing with me." Looking back, I should have clocked him right then, saved myself the trouble. The meeting wrapped, and I shuffled to the break room, pouring coffee that tasted like burnt regret into a styrofoam cup. My hands were steady, but my gut wasn't. I kept seeing Thanksgiving 4 months ago, at Mom and Dad's split level with the fake wood paneling. Lisa and I rolled up with a pecan pie she'd baked. Her idea, not mine, since I'd burn water if you let me near a stove. Mom was fussing over Ryan, who'd just tanked another business venture, some vape shop idea that lasted 3 weeks. "He's a visionary," she cooed, setting an extra slice of turkey on his plate. "Takes guts to chase dreams," Dad grunted at my news. "Got a bump to shift supervisor," muttering, "Don't screw it up, Jake," before turning back to the Lions game. Lisa squeezed my hand under the table, her nails digging in a little. But when I glanced over, her smile was tight, like it hurt to hold it there. Ryan caught her eye across the table, smirked, and said, "Pass the gravy, sis-in-law." I laughed it off. Why wouldn't I? They're family, right? I took a sip of the coffee, wincing as it scalded my tongue, and leaned against the counter. The break room smelled like microwave popcorn and disappointment. Pretty much my life lately. I'd been so busy squinting at the big picture, wedding plans, saving for a house, that I missed the cracks spider-webbing right under my nose. Like how Lisa started dodging me when I'd ask about her day, her phone buzzing more than a beehive, or how Ryan's compliments got sharper, less jokey. One night, I caught a whiff of his Axe body spray. Yup, that teenage locker room stink. On her jacket when she stumbled in late. I teased her, "What, you hugging lumberjacks now?" She laughed too quick and said, "You're nuts, Jake, it's just bad ventilation." I bought it. Call me Sherlock, minus the brain cells. I mean, who wants to think their fiancé's marinating in their brother's cheap cologne? The coffee went cold in my hands and I dumped it in the sink, watching the brown swirl down the drain. Things got weirder a few weeks back. Lisa was off snapping at me over dumb stuff, like when I left socks on the couch, then locking herself in the bathroom, puking her guts out. She'd wave me off, pale and sweaty, saying, "Just a bug, I'm fine." I started wondering, Bought her ginger ale one night, grinning like a dope as I handed it over. "Maybe it's a little Jake Jr. in there," I said, half kidding, already picturing cribs and diaper runs. She froze, eyes darting to the floor, and mumbled, "Don't be stupid, Jake." Her voice was flat, like she'd sucked all the air out of it. I brushed it off, chalked it up to stress. We were both grinding at work, saving for the wedding, barely seeing each other. Rough patches happen, right? I trudged back to my desk, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, and slumped into my chair. My phone sat there, screen dark, mocking me. I'd texted her last night after crashing at the new place. The words simple but heavy. "You okay? Love you." Took her an hour to reply, which wasn't like her. When she did, it was just 3 words, cold as a slap. "We need to talk." I was sprawled on the couch in my new place, the one with the lumpy cushions and the faint smell of stale cigarettes, when Lisa walked in. She'd texted me that morning after that cryptic "we need to talk" bullshit, asking to swing by. I'd said yeah, figuring maybe she'd burned out on her girls' nights and wanted to hash things out. Dumbass move. She stood there in the doorway, clutching her purse like it was a lifeline, mascara already smudging under her eyes. I muted the TV, some late-night infomercial about a blender I didn't need, and sat up, patting the spot next to me. "Hey, you okay?" "You look like hell," I said, half smirking to lighten the vibe. She didn't sit, just shifted her weight, chewed her lip, and then it came out fast and jagged like a hiccup she couldn't hold back. "I'm pregnant. It's Ryan's." I froze, beer bottle halfway to my mouth, and stared at her. My brain short-circuited, stuck on a loop of "what the fuck" until I barked out a laugh, sharp, bitter, loud enough to bounce off the bare walls. "You're shitting me, right? This isn't Maury Povich?" Her face crumpled, tears spilling, and she shook her head, whispering, "I'm so sorry, Jake." I set the bottle down hard on the coffee table, the clink loud in the silence, and leaned forward, elbows on my knees. "Sorry? That's it? You're pregnant with my brother's kid and you're sorry?" My voice was steady at first, but it cracked on the edges like ice about to shatter. She sank onto the armrest, hands twisting in her lap, and started talking, halting and messy. It started at the engagement party. Ryan was drunk and I was too, and he kept saying stuff like how I deserved better. How boring for me. She flinched as she said it, like she knew it had cut. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms, and cut in, voice shaking now. "Boring? Months, Lisa? While I was picking out tuxes and stressing over deposits, you were screwing my brother?" She nodded, barely, choking out, "It wasn't supposed to. It just happened and then it didn't stop." I stood up fast, knocking the table so the bottle wobbled, and paced to the window, staring at the parking lot lights blurring through my gritted teeth. I spun around, chest tight, and pointed at her. How many times did you come home to me, smiling, while you were banging Golden Boy behind my back?" She sobbed. "I don't know, Jake. I lost count. I hate myself for it." That did it. I grabbed the beer bottle and hurled it across the room. Didn't even think, just watched it smash against the wall, foam dripping down the paint like some shitty abstract art. "Lost count," I muttered, then louder. "Lost fucking count." My hands were trembling now, and I jabbed a finger at the door. "Get out! Take your crap and go play house with him. I'm done." She stood, wobbly, mascara streaking her cheeks like war paint, and stammered, "Jake, please, I love you. It was a mistake." I laughed again, harsh and hollow. "Love me? You don't screw my brother for months because you love me. Get the hell out, Lisa." She grabbed her purse, hiccuping sobs, and stumbled out, the door banging shut behind her. I sank back onto the couch, head in my hands, breathing like I'd run a marathon. The room spun a little. Beer, shock, whatever, and I fumbled for my phone. Ryan picked up on the third ring, voice all smug and lazy. "Hey, bro." "What's up?" I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles whitened. "You piece of shit. Lisa told me everything. Her kid's yours." He paused, then chuckled. Actually chuckled. like I'd told him a knock-knock joke. Whoa, chill, man. She came to me, okay? Maybe step up your game next time. I saw red, my voice dropping low and tight. Step up my game. You slept with my fiancée, you smug bastard. He sighed, all fake pity. Look, Jake, it happened. She picked me. Deal with it. I slammed the phone down on the table, screen cracking, and kicked the leg of the couch, pain shooting up my foot. Didn't care. Just kept seeing his smirk, hearing her excuses over and over. Next morning, my phone buzzed like a pissed-off hornet. Mom! I ignored it 3 times before picking up, already braced for the guilt trip. She was crying before I even said hello. Jake, how could you kick Lisa out like that? She's pregnant. She needs support. I snorted, leaning against the kitchen counter, staring at a half-empty coffee pot. Yeah, Mom, I heard. Ryan's the daddy. Congrats. You're getting that grandkid you always wanted. She gasped, then went quiet, sniffling. Oh, honey, we need to keep the family together. Ryan feels terrible. He didn't mean it. I gripped the counter, knuckles paling. Terrible. He laughed about it, Mom. Told me to deal with it. Dad's voice cut in, gruff and pissed. Don't be a baby, Jake. Shit happens. You gonna ruin everything over this? I snapped, loud enough to rattle the cabinets. Ruin everything? You mean Ryan's fan club? Nah. I'm out. You keep kissing his ass. I'm done. I hung up, chest heaving, and grabbed my keys off the counter. The apartment felt like it was closing in. Walls too tight, air too thick. I stormed out, boots thudding on the stairs, and slid into my truck, slamming the door hard enough to shake the frame. The engine roared to life and I peeled out of the lot, tires squealing on the asphalt, the cold night air blasting through the cracked window. I didn't know where I was going, just drove, fast, past strip malls and gas stations, the yellow glow smearing into streaks. My hands gripped the wheel, white-knuckled, and I muttered through clenched teeth, I'm done with this circus. The road stretched out, dark and endless, and for the first time in hours I could breathe. Sharp, ragged, pissed-off breaths, but mine. Whatever came next, I wasn't sticking around for their encore. I woke up on my buddy Dave's couch, the one that smells like stale beer and regret, surrounded by a graveyard of pizza boxes and crushed Mountain Dew cans. My neck ached from the lumpy cushions, and my mouth tasted like I'd licked an ashtray, but I couldn't drag myself back to that empty apartment. Not yet. I'd crashed here after driving around half the night, tires humming on back roads until the gas gauge blinked red and I had to pick a landing spot. Dave didn't ask questions when I banged on his door at 2 a.m., just tossed me a blanket and muttered, You owe me a 6-pack, asshole. Fair trade. I fumbled for my phone on the floor, the cracked screen lighting up with a dozen missed calls, Mom, mostly, plus a couple from numbers I didn't know, probably her flying monkeys. I scrolled X instead, bleary-eyed, and there it was, Ryan's latest post, a blurry pic of him and Lisa, her hand on her belly. Caption read, New chapter, new family. I snorted, a weak, pissed-off sound, and muttered, Yeah, mine, you dick. My thumb hovered over the like button for half a second, pure spite, before I chucked the phone onto the coffee table. It skidded, hit a pizza crust, and stopped. Least I didn't like it, I said to nobody, cracking a grin that felt more like a grimace. Dave stumbled out of his room, scratching his gut under a faded Metallica shirt, and squinted at me. You look like roadkill, man. What's the deal? I rubbed my face, stubble scraping my palms, and shrugged. Lisa's knocked up. Ryan's the daddy. Surprise! His jaw dropped. Then he whistled low. Holy shit, dude! That's next level messed up. I nodded, staring at the ceiling, where a water stain looked vaguely like a middle finger. Fitting. Memories hit like a sucker punch. Lisa's laugh in the kitchen, Ryan's backslaps at barbecues, all that fake brotherly crap. I grabbed a throw pillow and smashed my fist into it once, twice, growling, How'd I miss this? How'd I let that smug bastard snake my life? Dave flopped onto the recliner, cracking a can of Dew. You didn't let him, man. They screwed you. You gonna talk to them? Hash it out? I glared at him, tossing the pillow aside. What, so I can knit them a baby blanket and sing Kumbaya? Screw that! He raised his hands, grinning. All right, killer, just asking. Chill. I didn't chill. Couldn't. My phone buzzed again. Mom this time. And I let it go to voicemail, already picturing her sobbing into the receiver. I was right. When I played it later, her voice wobbled. "Jake, honey, come home. We need to fix this." Fix what? Her golden boy banging my fiancé? I deleted it, but she didn't quit. 2 days later, I was at work, unloading a pallet of boxes, when she showed up in the warehouse lobby, clutching a tissue like it was a damn Oscar prop. My supervisor, a guy with a mustache that'd make Tom Selleck jealous, poked his head out. "Jake, your mom's here. Says it's urgent." I groaned, wiping sweat off my forehead with my sleeve, and trudged over. She launched right in, eyes red. "Ryan, sorry, Jake. Lisa's a mess. You have to forgive them. They're family." I crossed my arms, voice flat. "Yeah? Funny how family keeps screwing me over. Tell them to send me a Hallmark card. I'm good." She grabbed my arm, sniffling. "Don't do this, honey. You're breaking my heart." I pulled away, nodding toward the exit. "Gotta work, Mom. See ya." She shuffled out, muttering about grandkids, and I went back to stacking boxes, slamming them harder than I needed to. Ryan didn't call. Too chicken shit, I guess, but he tried his luck in person a week later. I was pumping gas at the Shell station, the pump clicking slow as hell, when his beat-up Jeep rolled up. He hopped out, hands in his pockets, smirking like he hadn't just blown up my life. "Hey, bro." "We gotta talk." I kept my eyes on the nozzle, jaw tight. "Nothing to say, Ryan. Stay the hell away." He stepped closer, voice all casual. "Come on, man. Don't be a dick about this. Lisa's happy with me. You'll get over it." I slammed the pump back into its slot, gas sloshing on my boots, and shoved him hard in the chest. He stumbled, eyes wide. "Happy? You stole my fiancé, you prick. Back off before I break your damn nose." He raised his hands, backing up with that smug grin still plastered on. "Whatever, Jake. Your loss." I climbed into my truck, peeling out so fast the tires smoked, and flipped him off through the window. My hands shook on the wheel, but I didn't turn back. After that, I knew I couldn't keep crashing at Dave's or dodging Mom's ambushes. I found a new place, a studio with peeling wallpaper and a shower that groaned like it was dying, but it was mine. Signed the lease, moved my crap in 2 trips with the pickup, and blocked their numbers. Mom, Dad, Ryan, Lisa, the whole circus. Felt like cutting a rope I'd been choking on. I called HR the next day, voice steady as I explained. "Family's harassing me, need some backup." The lady on the line, all business, said, "We can file a report. Get a restraining order rolling if it's bad." I nodded, even though she couldn't see it. "It's bad." "Do it." Hung up, leaned back in my folding chair, the only furniture I'd bothered unpacking, and laughed, dry and short. "Nothing says fresh start like a lawyer's bill in a studio with no hot water. Living the dream, huh?" Days blurred into weeks, and I kept my head down, work, eat, sleep, repeat. Dave dragged me out for beers once, but mostly I stayed put, letting the quiet sink in. It wasn't peace, not even close, but it was something. Then my boss pulled me aside one morning, said, "HR's got your back, but you look like a zombie. You thought about talking to someone?" I shrugged, kicking at a scuff on the floor. "What, like a shrink?" He nodded. "Company plan covers it, might help, so I went first time last week. Sitting in a beige office with a lady who looked like she'd heard worse. I fidgeted with the hem of my jacket, staring at her diplomas like they'd bite me. She asked, "How you holding up, Jake?" I shifted, boots scuffing the carpet. "Pissed off. Hurts like hell. Thought I'd marry her, you know. Now she's with my brother and my folks act like I'm the bad guy." She scribbled something, then looked up. "That's a lot. What do you want out of this?" I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, and let out a breath. "I'm pissed, but I'm not dead yet. Guess I want to figure out how to not hate everything." She nodded, like that was enough for now. I walked out, hands in my pockets, the air sharp and cold. Wasn't fixed, nowhere close. But I wasn't spinning out either. Maybe that's a start. I was knee-deep in cardboard boxes, taping up the last of my junk for the move to Seattle, when I pulled Lisa's old sweatshirt out of a pile. Gray, faded, with a coffee stain on the sleeve from that time we'd laughed ourselves stupid over a spilled mug. I held it up, thumbs brushing the frayed hem, and for a second I could hear her giggling, see her tugging it over her head on lazy Sundays. My chest tightened, but then I snorted, a faint smirk tugging my lips. "Not my size anymore," I muttered, tossing it into the trash bag by the door. I tied the bag shut, dragged it to the curb, and added under my breath, "Plus, it reeks of betrayal." The new job was set, same company, different coast, And I'd spent the last week haggling with movers and dodging Dave's offers to throw me a going-away party. No point, man, I'd told him over beers at Dusty's, clinking my bottle against his. Not dying, just getting the hell out of Dodge. He'd grinned, shaking his head. You're a stubborn bastard, Jake. Call me when you're drowning in rain up there, I'd laughed. First real one in weeks. And promised I would. The apartment was a mess, half-packed chaos with duct tape rolls and Sharpie-scrawled labels, kitchen clothes, crap I don't need. I was wrestling a lamp into a box when the banging started, loud and pissed off, rattling the door on its hinges. I froze, hands still on the cord, and heard Mom's voice, shrill through the wood. Jake, open this damn door right now. My stomach dropped, but I didn't flinch, knew this was coming. The restraining order was fresh, ink barely dry, and here they were, violating it like it was a parking ticket. Dad's growl cut in, "We're not leaving till you talk." I set the lamp down, slow and deliberate, and grabbed my phone, dialing 911 while they hammered away. "Yeah, hi," I said when the dispatcher picked up, voice calm but tight. "Got 2 people banging on my door, breaking a restraining order. Can you send someone?" Mom's wail pierced through. "You're killing us, Jake! Your own family!" I leaned against the counter, watching the clock tick, and muttered to the empty room, "Family's what you make it. I'm out." Cops showed up 10 minutes later. 2 guys in stiff uniforms, one scribbling on a pad while the other herded Mom and Dad out. She was sobbing, mascara streaked, clutching Dad's arm like he'd bolt. "He's our son," she cried, loud enough for the neighbors to peek through blinds. Dad glared at me through the crack in the door, jaw clenched. "You're a selfish prick, you know that?" I met his eyes steady and said, "Takes one to know one. Stay gone." The cop with the pad glanced over, voice flat. "You pressing charges, sir?" I shook my head, rubbing my neck. "Nah, just get him out of here. I'm leaving tomorrow. Don't need the hassle." He nodded, tipped his hat, and they hauled him off, Mom's wails fading down the stairwell. I shut the door, locked it, and sank onto the floor, back against the wall, staring at the boxes. My hands didn't shake, not this time. Next day, I loaded the truck, hauled ass to the airport, and landed in Seattle with a duffel and a headache. Checked X one last time before the movers showed up. Ryan had posted again, a baby bump pic with Lisa, her smiling like she hadn't torched my life. "Blessed," the caption said. I snorted, scrolling past. "They're mess now," I mumbled, pocketing the phone. The new place was a step up, small but clean, with a balcony overlooking a gray, drizzly street. Rain tapped the glass as I unpacked, methodical, cracking a beer from a 6-pack I'd grabbed at a corner store. Miller Lite, cold and sharp, the first thing that felt normal in weeks. I stepped outside, leaning on the railing, letting the damp air hit my face. My phone buzzed. A text from Dave. "You alive up there?" I smirked, typing back, "Barely. Rain's soaking my soul," he replied. "Good. Wash that Ryan stink off." I laughed, short and rough, and scrolled my contacts, landing on a guy from the Seattle office. Mark, some warehouse vet I'd met once. "Know any good bars?" I texted. He shot back, "Dive on 5th. Cheap beer, no bullshit. See you there Friday." I nodded to myself, sipping the Miller. Solid enough. The rain picked up, drumming a steady beat, and I stayed out there, beer sweating in my hand, watching headlights blur through the wet. Didn't feel like a win. Not really. Still saw Lisa's face sometimes, heard Ryan's smirk, felt Mom's sobs like a kick to the gut. I took a long pull, the cold biting my throat, and set the bottle on the railing, condensation pooling under it. It tasted bitter, but maybe that was just me. "I won't lie," I said to the empty air, voice low. "It still stings. Like a bitch. But I'd rather build something real up here than play second fiddle in their soap opera. No violins, no epiphany, just me, the rain, and a half-empty 6-pack. I exhaled, watching the mist of my breath dissolve into the night. The city stretched out below, a neon mess of headlights and wet pavement, people moving like ghosts under streetlights. I wondered if any of them were running from something too, or if they'd already made peace with whatever ghosts haunted them. A car alarm blared somewhere in the distance, jarring me out of my head. I sighed, running a hand through my damp hair, shaking off the creeping nostalgia before it could settle too deep. The past had a way of sneaking up on you when you weren't looking, especially on nights like this, when the rain made everything feel heavier. I dug through a box by my feet, fingers brushing past old notebooks, loose change. a lighter that probably didn't work. Then, I found it. An old flannel, soft in some places, threadbare in others. Pulling it on, I let the fabric wrap around me, the scent of faded cologne and something almost familiar still clinging to it. It felt like an old song I used to love but hadn't heard in years. My phone buzzed against the wood. Twice. Mark. Bring cash. They don't take cards. I chuckled, shaking my head. Some things never changed. Typing back, I smirked. Old school. I'm in. The screen glowed in the dim light, my own reflection staring back at me for a beat too long. Tired eyes. A shadow of something I didn't want to name. I locked the phone before I could overthink it. The city hummed below, all noise and gray, a restless machine that never really stopped. I leaned back, boots propped on the railing, letting the night stretch out ahead of me. Whatever came next, at least it wouldn't be standing still. Wasn't healed, hell, wasn't even close. But I was here, breathing, free of their circus. Scars and all. That's enough for now.